wanting to be reunited with missing family members, but unfortunately we can't help everyone, and some people can't be found and some people don't want to be found. So I'm here with Ricky, and what I want to ask you, Ricky, is what happens, what do you say to people who may never find that missing piece of the jigsaw?
Yeah, well, sometimes that missing piece of the jigsaw is so important to people. They need to find out what is it that the importance is about for them. What is it that they think they're needing from that perhaps missing family member, and then see if they can get those needs met in another way. Another way is actually to begin to write your own story of the life that you want to have. So a person can feel like they're missing out on something. Well, fill in that gap. Actually write something into that gap. Or fill it with some kind of project or something which you feel is using up that energy of the anxiety and worry and feelings of loss.
Do you think sometimes people can fixate on that missing mother, father, cousin or what have you, and put their whole lives, you know, if I could find this person, then I would be happy?
Oh yeah, I think it's something that happens in therapy. Often people think that there is just one issue, that if I get that sorted, then everything else in my life will be perfect. Unfortunately, it isn't quite like that, no.
And what about those people who blame their missing mum or dad for the reason they've become aggressive or violent or gone into a life of crime? It's all because person X wasn't there.
Yeah, well, when you mention blame, the word game comes into my mind, and you know, that is what it is. It's just a game. It's not really actually addressing and sorting out the issues. It's about blaming and using those issues as an excuse to justify acting out in a way that's inappropriate.
So being a victim, if you say I'm a victim, it's not my fault, it's because mum or dad has never been in my life, so that makes you helpless. That insinuates that there's nothing you can do to change your terrible behaviour. That's
right. If someone is being in that way a victim, they are making themselves powerless, and they will prove themselves right. They will say, yes, I was right. Dad didn't want me, Mum didn't want me. Or they could be saying, I'm okay, I do love myself, I'm all right.
So you can actually change it. So you're saying for those people who can't find that missing loved one, there's no way that that person can be traced or wants to be traced, there are other things you can do. It is not the end of your life, it's not the only answer. You can actually start changing your own story?
Well, we are humans, and robots only have one or two choices, and we've got thousands of choices and options. We have thousands of choices open to us in every moment, if only we can be bothered to look for them.
Thank you very much, Ricky.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm backstage with one of the show's counsellors, Ricky. Now, when we talk about guest problems and situation, one thing that often crops up is boundaries and the lack of them. And we often see the damage that a lack of boundaries has on relationships. So, Ricky, this is a really common problem. So what I wanted to do is start with the definition of boundaries. What do we mean by that?
A psychological boundary, or any boundary we set, is where we put a limit on what it is that we like, want or need in life. So you get groups that set a boundary about what it's okay to have happen in a group, like even a group of football supporters will have boundaries about who they can talk about, who they can't talk about, for instance. Right. And then, you know, you have a couple and they will have their own personal boundaries. And then you have individuals who have their own boundaries.
But some people don't seem to have those boundaries. Why not?
Well, often people who aren't setting firm boundaries and consistent boundaries have insecurities or self-esteem issues whereby they are caught up in the guilt of saying no. That's how you tell when someone has very poor or weak or inflexible boundaries, when they feel fear or they experience guilt when they want to say no to something which they really don't want to do.
OK, so let's give some examples of some good boundaries you can have in a relationship that will keep your relationship on track.
Well, one can be the fact that it's acceptable to text me during the lunch hour at work, but whilst I'm working in a call centre, making loads of other calls, texting me is definitely out of bounds.
OK.
Another one would be it's OK to talk to certain people, or it's not OK to talk to certain people.
And things like it's not allowed, I don't want you calling me these names, or I guess another boundary is I never want you to raise a hand to me.
And that's it. And people who aren't using their boundaries will just say it's okay, yes, that they had a reason, they had an excuse for what they did.
And keep letting people off.
Yeah.
So what happens when those boundaries are completely knocked down one after the other? What happens to a relationship?
Well, I wouldn't say there is a relationship, you're just entering into pure abuse.
Thank you very much, Ricky. So, as you heard from Ricky, set some boundaries in your life and stick to them. But that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Hi, I'm backstage with the show's resident counsellor, Ricky. Now, we meet thousands of guests with different problems ranging from relationship breakdowns to family feuds. But do you believe there's a common problem that we keep seeing with our guests?
Yeah, one of the common problems is people not taking action or being very passive in their lives, in that a lot of people will just sit and take what is happening to them without actually doing anything to take responsibility for themselves. So one thing they can actually do is immediately begin to write down things, for instance, begin to write down what they're feeling or thinking about whatever problem it is.
Do you think people are frightened of change sometimes? They'd rather hang on to anything rather than have nothing?
Yeah, people only change generally quite slowly because we all have got our own comfort zones, and to move beyond those comfort zones is where we begin to experience fear and anxiety. So the more the person's able to cope with that fear and anxiety, the more they're actually be comfortable with moving into new areas of their life and having change.
So why do you think it is so many times we get guests up on that stage and ping, a light goes on and they suddenly decide then and there, when they come on the Trisha Goddard show, they want to change?
Well, I think that there's always been an element of public statement in change. And I think that's gone on, you know, you can see it when the president gets sworn in, for instance, of a country. You know, it's a very public statement that is being made. And that public exposure sometimes makes the person think, wow, I've said this in front of everyone, I better, you know, get behind it and follow through, yeah.
So if you want to change at home, if you want to make some changes, what are some easy steps that you can make? Because sometimes that change seems terrifying, but how do you take it step by step?
Well, it is a case of step by step. You know, people talk about change and you can't bully anyone into changing. I always come back to the flower analogy. You can't shout at a flower, grow! You know, it doesn't work. You have to, like, give it the right nurturing, the right encouragement, the right conditions for it to change. And we have to treat ourselves like that. Without letting ourselves off the hook and giving ourselves excuses, we need to think about what it is we want, what it is we need, write that down, think about it, and then think, well, how do I make that happen in the world? What steps do I take? And there need to be steps taken, otherwise it's just something on a bit of paper and a nice idea.
OK, thank you very much, Ricky. Well, that's all for today, so thanks for watching. Bye-bye.